And welcome into the Wednesday edition. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Wednesday morning. Joe Rexrode, good morning. How are you?
Okay.
That's good. Okay, is that an improvement from yesterday? I think so.
Yeah, it's I don't right at this moment it doesn't seem like it is, but whatever. Amputation is on the table now.
Well, that's not good. Let's try to avoid the amputation. It's far. How we doing? What's going on?
Oh, doing good. A little tired today. Late one watching the Panthers.
Yep.
Take down the Oilers, but doing great. Thanks.
Yep. Late one last night, and Joe, I just can't help myself when the Stanley Cup is being awarded. I just sit there and I watch the whole thing and the cup getting passed around, and finally when they started handing it off to like individual family members last night, I probably said, all right, that's probably good enough. I can probably go to sleep now. But the Florida Panthers get it done again, and they win their second consecutive Stanley Cup. And Matthew Tkachuk calling him a dynasty last night. We can get into that maybe a little bit later in the show, but just a clinic put on by Florida last night. And Sam Reinhart was awesome. He had four goals in the game last night. And it was clear early, Joe, after they got that first one, and certainly after they got the second one, that it was just going to be such an uphill climb for Edmonton to get that win. And when Florida really locks it in and locks it down, they're just almost impossible to beat. And that's what they did last night. They had everybody going. It could have been worse than what it was. They had a couple of really good looks that either they just missed the net on or Skinner made some good saves on. And then Skinner later in the game just made some bad decisions in net. So you factor in all those things, Joe, and Florida, a very worthy champion and a team that, and you look at their makeup right now, I'm not sure they're going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, I think when going into this series, I think we both picked Edmonton. I think at one point you were like, I'm probably going to end up looking stupid for picking Edmonton, and that's how I feel right now. Florida's just flat out better. Florida really dominated a big portion of this series, really. It doesn't always work out that the clear best team or the better team in a series outweighs the best individual, but 2 straight years that's the case. So congrats to Florida. Dynasty, a little early, but you win 2 in a row, and certainly you now have the start, right? I mean, what do we qualify if they get another one in the next 3 years?
I'd say so. Like the Blackhawks won
right,
3 and 6, right? And I consider that a dynasty. I think you have to get to 3 for me for the dynasty word to kind of be thrown out there. Now, I will say in this case, they have won 2 and they have gone to another final during that time. Same thing as Tampa. So, I guess you can debate that if you want to, but I always kind of start with you need to win 3, and then that's where the dynasty conversation starts.
Red Wings 4-12.
Yes, for sure.
Other finals.
Yes.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that we all agree. Thank you. 3-7, I guess. 4-12. So they're on the way, and it does bring me, Robby, to what we talked about with Sean Rourke yesterday. I mean, I have to immediately go back to this. I'm not sure I totally agreed with him. I mean, I totally hear what he's saying. Like the outcome of this year, he's the best player in the world still, right?
Yeah.
And I do think, and I've railed against this many times, the ring counting as your ultimate bottom line on everything, I think is faulty logic. But also, man, you look at his overall performance in this series, and I got to say, I think the guy does need to win a championship, and he needs to, he had an overall great playoff, but he left me wanting a little bit more. And again, I give Florida tons of credit for that too, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just he's going to sit there and point at Connor McDavid and say, do more. But still, like, these moments are when you want to see the best player in the world rise up a little bit more than he did, I think.
I would agree. I think he certainly is, especially from a goal scoring department. Like, he's still, especially early in the series, made a lot of plays and was distributing the puck, and that's a big part of his game. But you wanted to see more from the goal scoring part of it. And I agree with you. Like, I think the ring counting probably gets overblown in sports. It's also not nothing. Like, I don't think you can just totally ignore it either. And the bottom line is, like, he is going to be an all-time great player. I've said it before. McDavid is the greatest hockey player that I have ever seen play. Now, I also remind people that, I was not old enough to watch like prime Mario Lemieux or prime Wayne Gretzky. Like, I wasn't around for those guys. So in my generation, McDavid is the best player I've ever seen. But I do think when it's all said and done, when you're going to be compared to Crosby and you're going to be compared to Lemieux and Gretzky and all those guys, like, championships are a part of it. And I'm not saying like he has to win more championships than Gretzky to be better than Gretzky, or win more championships than Crosby to be better than Crosby. But I do think you have to win one, right? Like, you gotta find your way in there in that discussion when you're one of these all-time great players. And, look, he's still got plenty of hockey left. I still believe at some point, whether it's in Edmonton or elsewhere, he's going to break through and he's going to win. I do think that's going to happen at some point. But I will say, you look at his career, and this was his 11th year already, his 11th season. I mean, how much of his top level does he have left? I think he's got a good while at it left, but it's not forever. Like, there's a window here, and all off season long, Joe, and we'll have plenty of time to discuss this. But I just threw the tweet out there last night. If you're any other team in the league right now, how much do you kind of have one eye on, hey, is he going to sign an extension this offseason? Like, is he – because I've made my position on it clear. If I was him, I would not. I would take it down to the last possible second and leave every option on the table. That's what I would do. I don't know that he's going to operate that way, but I can tell you that almost every eyeball in the NHL this offseason, Joe, is going to be wondering, if they get to training camp and he's not gotten an extension with Edmonton yet, that's all people are going to talk about next year.
That's the thing. Do you want that distraction? I mean, obviously what you want is, do you want to be there, or do you want to be elsewhere? It will be, like you said, it will be the dominant story until something's resolved on that,
yeah,
which can be a giant distraction. It's going to be fascinating. Certainly it'd be, if you're him, I'm sure you could look around and you could think about different guys you like to play with, or different places you'd like to be. Also, you did just, make the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row with your current outfit. So it's not like things are going that badly. So you have to keep that in mind too. Just get rid of Corey Perry. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. No more Corey Perry. Like, if you're a crappy team in this league, you should want him. But if you're a team that actually thinks you can win it, you need to stay the hell away from him.
You need to find a way to make sure you're playing against him in the final, apparently.
Well, that's right.
I know it's Corey Perry, and it's kind of hard to feel bad for him. I do kind of feel bad for him. I mean, it's pretty hard to lose 5 cup finals in a row. I mean, he's been to 5 out of the last 6 overall, but being a guy that lost 5 in a row is pretty insane. I remember like Marian Hossa, he was with Pittsburgh when Pittsburgh lost, and then he went to Detroit and was with Detroit when Pittsburgh beat Detroit, and then he finally the next year went to Chicago and won. But I was like, man, this guy's like the reverse Midas touch out there.
Yeah. It's really interesting. It's like he's added it's like a couple years extra on his career. Like, all right, bro, thank you. Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas. They only lost 4 in a row. So
it's true.
Congrats to Corey Perry. I don't feel bad for him at all. Not one bit.
I don't think a whole lot of people around here do. I think it may just be me that's like, that kind of sucks, man. But maybe if you're a Predators fan, that's what you take solace in last night. Not a very good Stanley Cup final for Matthias Ekholm, and I will be interested to see what comes out about like exactly where he was with his health, because I mean, just some mistakes, especially in the last 2 games, that you don't see him make very often. And I mean, last night he makes a bad pass to Bouchard on the first goal, and Bouchard kind of fumbles the puck a little bit, and then Ekholm has a chance to kill the play in the middle of the ice, and he just whiffs. Like, he whiffs on the puck and doesn't take the body, and then Reinhart scores an incredible goal to put him up 1-0. But just some mistakes from Ekholm that you don't see him make a whole lot. So I'll be interested to see what comes out about exactly where he is from his health part of it. Like, Matthew Tkachuk was talking about, his like abductor being torn off his bone last night. So there's a lot of things that are going to come out in the next couple of days here about what guys we're trying to play through. And then, of course, beyond McDavid, Joe, the other storyline for Edmonton is going to be, what about their goalie? Like, is Stuart Skinner going to be their goalie next year, or do they have to come up with plan B, which I think they do, heading into this offseason? And if you're Jared, you could throw in the UC Saros part of that too.
I was just going to say, how would you like 8 years of UC Saros, Edmonton Oilers, for a low, low price?
Man, maybe so. Hey,
Get in there.
worth the phone call.
Yeah, sure. Johnny's very excited there. Dancing chipmunks, dancing. Is that Peppermint Patty? No, it's not Peppermint Patty. Dancing Elmo. Very excited about this. Congrats, Johnny.
Yes, very, very much so. Just congrats to Florida. They're a really, really good team. And like I said, I don't think they're going anywhere. Like, I think they're going to find a way to bring Sam Bennett back. And I think it'll be very interesting to see what happens with Marchand, because he's such a great fit down there. I do think he's going to get a lot of offers in the offseason as well. So, like, how does he prioritize what exactly he's looking for is going to be really interesting. But, I mean, look, I would not be surprised at this point, even though it's a really, really, really difficult thing to do, if Florida's back in the final next year for the 4th consecutive year. I mean, they are – I heard Elliot Friedman talking about this, and I totally agree. Like, when you think about the teams that have won multiple championships in a short period of time in the NHL over the last few years, whether that's Pittsburgh in 16-17 or Tampa recently, now Florida, like, I would love to go back and just have like the Kings earlier, the Blackhawks, have a tournament between all those teams and see which one would come out on top. We get prisoner of the moment all the time, and there have been some teams that have won championships on those teams that are probably have more star power than this Panthers one does. You'd be hard pressed, in my opinion, Joe, to find a deeper one. Like, there's zero weakness on this Panthers team, zero.
I agree, but I'll still take Tampa's best in this run against them. That's what I'd put my money on.
Yeah, I think it's a great debate. Like, Tampa would probably be my pick as well. But again, like, how about prime Blackhawks? Like, those are pretty good too. There's a lot you could choose from when it comes to that discussion. 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. Your reaction to the Florida Panthers winning consecutive Stanley Cups, wrapping that up last night against the Edmonton Oilers. We'll get more of your thoughts on that. Plus, an update on the Predators captain yesterday that is potentially concerning heading into next year. And we'll revisit some of our Predators conversation from yesterday as well. All that coming up. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Down to the final 5 seconds. Rats rain down. Lord Stanley staying in South Florida. Last year was greatness. This time it's historic. The Florida Panthers are back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. The Panthers have done it in 6 games. They take down the Edmonton Oilers. The Panthers have gone back-to-back in 24 and 25.
Glorious, beautiful, remarkable, and undeniable. The Panthers at the top of the hockey mountain for the second year in a row, Stanley Cup champions.
The Florida Panthers have etched their names in hockey history.
That was the final call last night as the Panthers wrap up consecutive Stanley Cup championships, and they've been in the final 3 years in a row. And boy, they don't look like they're slowing down anytime soon. Taking your thoughts on the Stanley Cup last night and the Predators moving forward, 615-737-1025. Michael in Madison says, I'm going to be completely delusional and believe that this Cup final loss means the end of Connor McDavid's time in Edmonton and foolishly think that the Predators have a chance of acquiring him. Some other people on YouTube are like, McDavid to Nashville. It's happening. Step 1, complete. Joe, as I pointed out in the YouTube chat, I have heard that Connor McDavid does like country music, and there's visual evidence that apparently Nathan McKinnon met up with Jelly Roll after the Jelly Roll concert the other night. So that McDavid-McKinnon duo in Nashville could be pretty special.
That'd be pretty good. I mean, that's you center a couple lines there, put them together, maybe, a
lot of options
there. Great for the power play. I like it. Anybody who likes country music, I say that the Preds have a chance. But seriously, every market in the NHL should at least utter it, right? Should at least dream about getting McDavid.
As I respond, look, if he doesn't have an extension signed by the time he comes back into camp with Edmonton next year, every market will start the dream about signing Connor McDavid. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that part of it plays out. Joe, an update on Roman Josi. So I saw this yesterday from SwissHockeyNews.ch, and they were kind of putting together and aggregating a story that came from Blick, which is a Swiss-German newspaper, where apparently Josi did an interview, and he talked about a condition that he's been dealing with since he had his concussion last year, got hit by Sam Bennett, and missed the rest of the season for the Predators. He's been apparently diagnosed with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, more commonly referred to as POTS. And as Swiss Hockey News points out, this is kind of a situation that it's an abnormally large increase in heart rate upon standing up or sitting up. There's a bunch of different symptoms that come with it that include headaches, which was apparently what Roman Josi was dealing with, obviously in the aftermath of the concussion. And he thought maybe that something was wrong with his brain. Got a checkup in Denver, and that's where this diagnosis came from. Now, Josi, in this article here, and again, this has been translated, so sometimes things get either kind of lost in translation or sound a little weirder in translation. But here's what it says from that piece from Blick. Quote, over the last 8 weeks, I've undergone intensive therapy, which also included taking beta blockers. I've been feeling much better since then. I've regained the belief that I'll be 100% fit again and can fully attack with Nashville and the Swiss national team next winter. So, Joe, obviously that's concerning. It also kind of answers some questions. I remember at the end of the season, Josi, he had his media availability. And at some point, we talked about the concussion, and he never outright said he had a concussion, but he was like, basically, you guys know what it is. But at the end of it, I remember him getting asked about if they were in playoff contention, if the playoffs were going on right now, could he play? And his answer was no. He's like, no, I cannot play right now. And I remember us talking about that, Joe, and being deeply concerned about that because obviously we thought it was stemming from the concussion. And now I think maybe it wasn't really the concussion that it was stemming from. It may have been this and him dealing with POTS and just not knowing it at the time. So he says he believes he'll be back to being 100% fit again, but I loosely know some people that deal with this and know that it can be pretty challenging. So we'll be something to monitor on the Roman Yossi front.
Yeah, I guess you'd rather it be something else other than a concussion that lingers that long after he's had several of them at his age. You'd probably pick this, but you're still not picking this if you have a choice, right?
Right.
I mean, this could still be a real challenge for him, and not getting any younger. But at least he found an answer, because I'm sure that was for him again, who's gone through a few of those. I'm sure it was very alarming. This must have been way. I mean, the headaches might have been different too, or whatever, but like way longer after the injury to be dealing with it, and then you have to be wondering, like, okay, so is this just a more severe concussion, or do I just not recover from them as well? So, I mean, at least it's good to have it diagnosed.
It's good to have it diagnosed, and hopefully he can manage it well. But as I said, I mean, it's something that he's going to have to deal with, and he's talked about the therapy that he's gone through and the beta blockers and how much that's made him feel better. So hopefully, we all have been around Roman Yossi. We love Roman Yossi. So hopefully, he's able to kind of get through this and continue to play at a high level. But most importantly, like his long-term health, we've talked about that both with this and kind of this diagnosis now that apparently he's got. And also, like, he still has racked up some of these concussions here. So moving forward here, just going to be very interesting to see how he monitors it, how the Predators monitor it. And I mean, really hoping that this is the last time that he's dealing with any sort of concussion stuff, because Joe, he had several early in his career, to the point where I remember some of the conversation around here. He got a 7-year deal, and some of the conversation was, wow, he's making $4 million a year on a 7-year deal, and he's had like 2 or 3 concussions so far. It's a pretty risky move by David Poile. It ended up being one of the greatest contracts they've ever signed and worked out really well. But now, over the last few years, some more concussions have entered the mix, and that's always a scary thing.
Yeah, no question. It's I mean, look, you just take some huge hits in this game. But I think people sometimes underestimate the collision nature of hockey, and you can take. I mean, as a defenseman, you can take 3 or 4 hits in a game that I would say would rival what some NFL players go through in a game, and you're playing. And even if not, you're talking about 82 versus 17.
Right.
I mean, it's a high concussion sport, despite what Gary Bettman has said before in the past.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get back into our Predators discussion from yesterday. What exactly do the Predators have to do this offseason to get back to being competitive? How much turnover is needed? How much improvement is needed? We'll get into all that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. I got some tickets to give away. A pair of tickets to the Preds Beer Festival at Bridgestone Arena coming up on Saturday, June the 28th. Be caller number 3, 615-737-1025. 615-737-1025. Caller 3 will win a pair of tickets to the Preds Beer Festival at Bridgestone Arena coming up on Saturday, June the 28th. Joe, speaking of the Preds, we had a really interesting discussion yesterday, and we appreciate the participation from our listeners. More of that welcome at 615-737-1025. What do the Predators have to do to be competitive? Is there a feasible, realistic path this offseason to getting them back to being competitive? And again, as I said yesterday, I'm not talking about scraping into the last spot of the playoffs and getting beaten 5 games in the first round. I'm talking about, is there a spot with this group, with a goalie that you've signed with an 8-year contract that kicks in next year, winners in Stamkos and Marchessault and O'Reilly and Yossi and all these guys? Is there a realistic path this offseason, coming off a year where you finished 30th in the league, where you can get back to being competitive in terms of actually being a threat to win next year? And Joe, as we sit here today, it seems like an incredibly lofty thing, doesn't it? I mean, you just finished 30th in the league. We just went through, some health concerns now with Roman Yossi that you're talking about. An age of the roster, when you're talking about contributing players, that is pretty high when you start talking about, mid 30-year-olds in the forward group, and Yossi's not getting any younger, and Saros is still in the prime of his career, but the numbers haven't gone well over the last couple of years. What exactly has to happen this offseason? Joe, do you see a realistic path at all to that being the case next year in a league where sometimes you do see some dramatic swings from year to year? Could that happen with the Nashville Predators next year?
Sure, it could, but I think that the path there is more, again, like I was talking about yesterday, hope is more the path and strategy. Not that Barry Trotz should be sitting on his hands. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying, yeah, it can happen, but a bunch of things have to kind of go the other way, and players individually and collectively, have to just play better. I don't have a magic wand other than I understand that Saros was not supported the way you need to support a goalie, but he needs to be way better. He needs to play like he's played at his best. Stamkos, who, you started to see, he had stretches last year, but Stamkos, Marchessault, and then, some of these other guys too, like a guy like Evangelista, you thought he was on a certain trajectory after the previous year with the team that made the playoffs that we didn't expect to make the playoffs. And then that got disrupted. And then you go through all this stuff, and this is where it would be easier to imagine these things had they made a coaching change.
Yeah.
Not making the coaching change, it does feel a little bit like the whole, keep banging your head on the wall and expect like a different result. I think I just mixed up two like sayings, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So is it possible? Yeah, but like a lot of it really is just like, look, we played the clip yesterday. Trotz talking about the chip on the shoulder. It's such a cliche, but man, you sure as heck hope that's part of like the story of this team, is that this summer everybody is so driven that they have incredible summers. You can have a amazing summer, great summer, good summer, okay summer as a player in any pro sport, to get ready. And there's still a limitation on what that means. It's still about these guys collectively playing much better together in this system, or whatever, however it changes, but I think that's it. Yeah, Trotz needs to do something to change the math. He's not going to change it that much. It's still going to be mostly these same guys and hoping that they play better.
To me, Joe, there are 4 things that absolutely have to happen if this is going to be the case. If they're going to be an actual threat next year. And I'll lay those out real quickly, and you can tell me if you believe at all that this is realistic. Number 1, you need improvement from everybody on the roster. Everybody's got to have a better year than they had last year, right? Now, some of that's going to happen naturally. Like there are some guys that were so off last year that I think they're probably going to naturally course correct. But, really that question comes down to, all right, how much better, even with a year older, do you think Steven Stamkos can be in year 2 with the Predators and not going through the big change in an offseason like he did last year? Same thing with Marchessault. Like there's Brady Shea, another example of that. All those guys got to get way better than they were this year. You mentioned the goalie. The goalie's got to get way better. So those are 2 right off the bat. Number 3 would be, I think they got to revamp the defense core. Like I think there's some serious surgery needed on that defense core this offseason. You've got Yossi, and we'll see what he looks like coming back. Shea's not going anywhere. They are in dire need of another right shot defenseman to come in and help. And probably 2 of them, but they're in dire need of at least one. They got by at times last year with like Shea and Blankenberg playing together, and Blankenberg was a nice story. To me, heading into next year, if Blankenberg is on your team, he probably needs to be like your 7th guy. Like that's their defense was awful last year. So there's number 3. There's some surgery needed to the defense core, and I think they may have to make some tough choices about who's going to be a part of the defense core moving forward and who's not. Like, Delgaizo, Stasny, Willsby, like all those guys can't be there. Like there's Molendijk you got to consider. You can't have all of them. So you got to make some decisions this offseason as to who's a part of your defense core and who's not. And I would say at least 1, probably 2 need to come from outside the organization that are not currently here. So that's number 3. And number 4, which is the hardest one, they got to get some legitimate help at center. They have to. They have to get legitimate help at the center ice position. And Joe, as we know, that is the hardest possible thing to do in the NHL. It's very difficult to acquire them. Usually if you do acquire them, it's because either things aren't working out where they currently are and you're, taking a huge risk at that point. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Or maybe you get lucky and somebody just gets really mad about their situation this offseason and forces their way out, and you could take advantage of it. But to me, Joe, those are the 4 things that have to happen. You got to get improved play from your key guys. The goaltender's got to get way better. You got to revamp the defense core a little bit, and there's got to be at least one centerman brought in that's a legitimate player. And I just that seems like an awful lot of things to happen in one offseason.
Yeah, and I think the first 3 are all absolutely they're realistic. It's not crazy. Or is all that going to happen together? Some things can kind of help each other a little bit with this, if this happens, then it's a little easier for this to happen, like a circular, like some flow chart. But yeah, the 4th thing is that's where it's like, I don't know. I agree. You're right. But that one is on the realistic scale. That's the one that's a little bit more of just an unknown, and kind of got to see it materialize. I'm sure, Barry Trotz is probably gone through every possible, iteration, every possible scenario where he can make that happen. There's no question it has to happen. If they don't do, if the first 3 things happen and they don't figure out the last thing, and they just have, they're just deficient there down the middle, could they still be a playoff team?
Yes. If the first 3 things happen, I think they can get back into the playoffs. But again, I think the team we just saw win it again is another great example of this. Like, you have to have high-level players down the middle. You have to. And Ryan O'Reilly's been a great player throughout his career. Ryan O'Reilly at this stage of his career is probably a really, really, really good third-line center, or maybe a second-line center. That's what he is right now. And it's hard to – if you're talking about winning a championship, or not even win, but competing for a championship and being a legitimate threat, you got to have it down the middle. You just have to in today's game.
Yeah, and when Barry Trotz signed Ryan O'Reilly, he talked about this is what he is right now, and he's a guy who can at some point downshift. But so that's the idea. This is exactly when he would be doing that. The problem is, I think Barry Trotz thought there'd be some answers in front of him, and there aren't. So that's where it's challenging. Joel from Woodbury, not sure if he's serious, but he says today is day one of the Preds' ultimate goal: tank for Gavin McKenna.
Yeah.
Who is the likely number one pick next year? That's not. I wouldn't look for that, Joel. Now, if they have another unintentional tank like last year, then boy,
Yeah,
gonna get interesting around here. Let me tell you.
Well, and as you've seen, I mean, you could tank, and then it basically comes down to watching ping pong balls on TV and seeing if it falls your way, which it has not fallen your way ever in the history of your franchise.
Yeah. So good luck with that. Give it another shot. Wouldn't that be fun to go through another horrific year
Yeah.
and then, be counting on that?
Finish 31st and then end up picking 4th in the draft. That'd be good stuff coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, Ethan from Lawrenceburg says, geez, you don't wish for too much, do you, Robby? It's like, I'm just trying to realistically lay out where I think they are right now in terms of, again, I'm not talking about getting back in the playoffs and just being happy to be there. I'm talking about how far away do I think they are for competing for a championship? What has to happen for them to get back there? And Joe, I think that's it. Like, I think all those 4 things that are really difficult to all have happen at the same time, that's where they're at right now, which, by the way, is why they're 30th in the league. That's how far away they are.
Yeah. And, look, when you really talk about competing for a championship, obviously all of those would have to be answered emphatically, but the 4th one in particular would have to be like a revelation ad down the middle.
Well, and look,
Like,
there are some
they haven't
people
had since they traded for Ryan Johansson.
Exactly. And like, it would probably, frankly, as much as I like, Ryan Johansson probably does not get enough credit early in his Predators career for how good he was and how much that changed things around here. But like, frankly, it would probably take a bigger level player than that. Like, that's where they're at with their roster right now. Now, the one thing I'm leaving the door open for, and we'll see, and there are, Elliot Friedman's talked about this. We had Sean Rourke on yesterday. There are a lot of people that think from now until basically the draft and the first day of free agency that it could be mass chaos in the NHL because of everybody knows the cap's going up. There's some offer sheet possibilities that people think could be in play, maybe more so than normal. And when we saw an offer sheet last year that St. Louis signed with 2 Edmonton guys in Broberg and Holloway that worked out really well for St. Louis. And it's typically been like people have been afraid to do it. And then they saw St. Louis do it last year, and those 2 guys played great for them. So I think there's probably a little bit more of a willingness to do that now in the NHL. Like it could be a pretty wild next couple of weeks in the NHL here. What happens with Elias Pettersson in Vancouver? Is there anybody else right now that we don't really know about that materializes over the next few weeks into the offseason that says, you know what? I don't know that I want to be here anymore. Move me. Like, that happens in the NHL from time to time. By the way, you talk about the Panthers and the biggest reason why they are where they are. We can talk about Barkov and Maurice and all that. Biggest reason why they are where they are, Matthew Tkachuk trade. That's why they are where they are. I mean, it's
Right.
not a coincidence they've won 2 cups and been to 3 finals since they acquired it.
Yeah, they wouldn't have what they have had they not done that. And of course, we were talking about the Preds in that situation at the time. Yeah, look, and you mentioned, and I think it is. I think it's worth taking a chance too. I think, look, you've already taken some chances. I mean, again, our reaction at the time versus now, totally different. Second guessing, didn't first guess, but like a Pettersson, I mean, look, there are red flags and all that stuff, but like I think you have to. It may not be a perfect situation. You may have some misgivings if you come across something you could possibly do. But to me, I think you're at the point where you have to be aggressive and potentially gamble to make something of what you've done with this roster. Because again, you're just not going to change it that much.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More of your thoughts on the Preds to get to coming up next. Plus, if they don't improve much next year, where does this franchise go after that? We'll get into that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Joe, we'll get to Alex Doherty from the Tennessean coming up here in just a few minutes, get his thoughts on the Predators and where things go from here. Joe, let's spin it the other way. We've talked about, what has to happen for the Predators to get back to being competitive and how realistic is it. What if they're not next year? What if you get into next season and it becomes pretty clear that there's not much improvement that's happened, beyond the status of the coach, which, I would have to think if that's the case next year at some point, his time probably expires as Predators head coach. What do you do if you're ownership, if you're the front office, the players? How do the fans feel about it? What's the response if the Predators pretty clearly we get into next season, Joe, and they are still clearly not a playoff team, and you're looking at the future and you're saying, all right, you just had a top 5 overall pick. Hopefully that guy comes in at some point and rescues it. But in the immediacy of it, Stamkos and Marchessault and Forsberg and Yossi and Saros and all these guys are still here. What do you do if you're just not at all competitive again next year, Joe?
Well, it's a real problem. And I know the slappies in town, including one at this station, would say, well, let's just see if David Edstrom's good in a few years. I'll just judge it on that. But look, I mean, I think at that point, the pressure has to be pretty high on Trotz. Obviously, it'll mean that this attempt didn't work. He has locked you into this goalie deal that probably isn't going to age well. Is going to be difficult to get out of. It's going to be painful to get out of. Again, like that's I guess. See, I'm already answering the question, and that's such an important singular aspect of it. Is okay, even if it's not good next year, but do we see Saros look like Saros again? Like, do you have some hope with him? It's almost like when we talk about the Titans, and it's like they go 5-12 next year, but if Cam Ward's good, then you can still feel good about things. Like, is Saros playing the same way as this year? Part of it, because if that's the case, man. Then Barry Trotz has really screwed it up here. And that is the thing that we first guessed. We did, and a lot of people did. That was first guess. The Stamkos and all these things, that was not, that's second guessing right now, which of course we all do. But that was first guess. And so I guess I'm throwing that back at you as a little bit of it. That's a huge part of it. If that's not any better, then, look, I think Trotz's seat should start getting real warm. It's been a short period of time, and he's a smart guy, and he's a Hall of Fame coach. But what are you looking at then? Maybe there are some promising guys in the farm system. There's going to be another one real soon who's going to be at the head of the list.
Yep.
So, you have that, but boy, think about the gap in between these things. So, how much pain are you talking about?
Wow.
How much are you willing to deal with? And maybe it's as simple as, Trotz has signed on for, and when we are going to see after a few years, if some of these young players and prospects are actually good and he has a good eye for that. And if that's the case, then you can tolerate these mistakes early in terms of your current roster. But you're talking about several years then of waiting to see.
Well, that's the thing. There is a scenario here where if they're not able to fix this offseason, that they could be at the bottom of the standings for a while, right? Like, if your current group of veterans doesn't fix it this year, I said it yesterday, they got a lot of 30-some-odd-year-olds, and recently they've had a lot of 21, 22, 23-year-olds come up. They are really, really light. Matter of fact, I don't know if they've really got any that are impactful 26, 27, 28-year-olds, right?
So Novak is a guy who you would hope to be that guy right now.
Right. And
for example.
He wasn't, and now he's gone. So they don't really have that guy. Like, even like Brady Shea is 30, he'll be 31, and you hope that he's, a stalwart back there moving forward. Saros he's 30. So they are they're pretty much non-existent when you start thinking about the 26, 27, 28-year-old really, really impactful players that they've got. So when there's that much of a gap between the kind of both parts of your roster, like if the current veteran group either doesn't play better next year or they're not able to figure it out, and particularly what you said, if the goalie's not good again next year, like you start to look at the future of the team and you say, all right, well, now you have to wait on all the young guys to come up before you can kind of evaluate what they are. And that could involve, I'm not saying it will, but it absolutely could involve 2-3 more years after that, Joe, where they're not very good as they're trying to build this thing. I guess what I'm saying is if they don't fix it this offseason, there is a conceivable scenario where they're not a playoff team for the next 3-4 years. And that would be unbelievably disappointing given the fact that when you signed Stamkos, Marchessault, and Shea, the idea was, and we talked about this at the time, in their first 2 years, as they're getting older, but still maybe, able to produce at a high level in the first part of those contracts, you could really have a chance to compete. If they don't next year, there's absolutely a scenario where they're just not very good for about 3 or 4 years.
Right. And then the whole, hey, tank for this guy, tank for that guy. Well, you can start talking about it, Whoever your top prospect is in a given year, hey, you're right in there. So enjoy that. Because let me tell you something. The Preds, obviously they had a great playoff streak. Yes. It felt like the mushy middle, and it was like, stop being just pretty good. You got to be bad to be better, all that stuff. Well, the people who were saying that may finally get their wish, even though it wasn't the intent. A lot of reaction. I want to rip through a few quick ones on this. I got to sign Corey Perry. Like I said, hey, I agree. If you're bad, get Corey Perry. Preds wouldn't have a right D problem if they'd gotten rid of Fabro, or if they kept Fabro, which is an interesting one. You got a trade Saros Edmonton. I got a John Hines from Gunner would have taken this team farther. So there we go. Get some John Hines love. Cam says Troy Terry supposedly available.
He apparently is. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me from the Anaheim point, but again, he's not a centerman. Like they need a centerman, right? And I don't know. They're just those are really, really difficult to find. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Alex Doherty from the Tennessean will join us coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on some of this with the Predators. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Wednesday morning, talking to Predators and a huge offseason for them. And to help us do that, we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Alex Doherty from the Tennessean to the program. Alex, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I have to say, I'm not feeling great, but I'm going to power through. If Joe can power through the gout, I think I'm going to try to give it a go. So
look at Rexrode. Rexrode inspiring people all around our great city with his willingness and his toughness to just continue to work on. Good stuff there.
Let my gout be your guide.
I thought about calling. I thought about bailing, but I said, you know what? Joe is putting it all on the line. He's putting the team on his back. I can do this.
Well, I just appreciate the toughness from you two as we really just soldier on and power through this interview here. So, Alex, we've talked a lot on the show today and yesterday about what a massive offseason this is for the Predators. And one thing that I've talked about is there a path that is realistic where they can get back to being a competitive team? And I'm not just talking about making the playoffs. I'm talking about being a legitimate threat, which Barry Trotz talked about last year when he signed all these guys of he wants to be a threat. As you look at where they're at with their roster, where they're at with the center ice position, the defense, all these different things, does that path exist to you this offseason or not? How do you view that challenge for Barry Trotz?
I think it does exist, but only with some pretty bold moves. You are not going to be back to competitive level with just we signed Ryan Donato in free agency, or we signed they signed a second or third line center and a bottom pairing defenseman. Like, that's not going to make it work. It's not going to be some small move, like, economical move that for a good price and everything. It's going to take at least a couple big moves. And so I kind of was thinking about this. I would say that two of these three things have to be on the table for Trotz. So these three options, that he's got to do at least two of these. At least one bold, big trade. I'm talking like the Tkachuk to the Panthers or Weber Subban, something like that, like a big trade where you move a big piece for a big piece. You make a trade that both sides are benefiting and getting what they need, or you bite the go for it and make an offer sheet on one of these young centers that's out there. Marco Rossi, Mason McTavish, those are options. I hear JJ Peterka's name out there. That's another option. So, that would be another move. And then the last one would be signing another big-time free agent, busting out the pocketbook again, signing a big free agent. I would say if they do that, it's probably on the defensive side, like Aaron Ekblad's out there. I mean, there's some options there. But I think if you're going to, as you're talking about it, if they want to get back to anything close to what Florida has, they've got to make some bold moves. They can't just, make little tiny moves here and there to just creep up, because they're so far away from that. I mean, anyone who watched the Panthers just mow through these teams sees the entire depth of their team. They've got lines that are playing on the third and fourth line, that are players that are playing on the third and fourth line that would be, probably leading the way on the Predators right now. They've got defensemen everywhere. They got a goaltender that's actually playing like his paycheck says he should play. I mean, it's just they are so far away from where the Predators are. You can't get there unless you make some big moves. And I have no idea if those things are going to happen, by the way. An offer sheet is a big risk. I mean, you miss out on that, or if you make an offer sheet and sign a guy and miss out on those draft picks, it could really come back to bite you. A bold trade, those are hard to pull off, first of all, but also there's no guarantee. They tried that with Kyle Turris. That didn't work out.
Yep.
I just think that if you don't make big moves like the Panthers tried to do or did, it's just not going to happen.
I think that's a great breakdown. So let's set that aside, though, Alex, and let's just look at what they have. What is because a lot of things went very poorly, in some cases probably about as poorly as you ever could have imagined with some of the players in this team and just the entire product. What is the realistic hope for just improvement? Let's say they don't make they get none of that done, but a lot of the the individual worst case scenarios of last year or close to it become best case scenarios next year. I know that that's also not probably realistic, but I guess what I'm getting at is the current form of this team. How much better can it get?
I mean, it could get a little better. I mean, it would to me, if you make no changes and you just go into next year with maybe making a couple of small moves in the offseason, maybe you get a new right shot defenseman, maybe you and then of course they've got some young guys coming. Tanner Molendyke's probably going to be here. Whoever they get in the top 5 draft, maybe that person is here, maybe not. But I think it's like the difference between being the 3rd worst team and being a bubble playoff team. That's it. I mean, they can't. I mean, even if things had gone right in a lot of scenarios, even if some of those games that they blow, like the Philadelphia game, even some of those games that you're going to have some blowouts here and there, blowout losses, but even the games that they just couldn't hold on to for whatever reason, those mental breakdowns in the 3rd period and such. I mean, what's that going to do? It's going to get you like a bubble spot. Maybe you're close to the playoffs. It's not a big, and then you're back to where, fans have been frustrated for 6-7 years now. I mean, back to just maybe making it, but then probably a first round exit. That's why I just think like the only way to do this is if you significantly change your roster going into next season. And the only way to do that is through trades or offer sheets or trying to send away someone you've already got. I mean, we saw last year, you can't just do it through all through free agency. It's got to be a multi-pronged approach, trades, possibly an offer sheet, maybe get someone in the draft that's going to work right now, maybe make a trade on draft day that gets you a piece that you can use right now. It's just, I don't see, as your question, Joe, I don't see a way that if just everyone plays better next year, they're contending for the Western Conference, champion title. Like that's just not going to happen.
How much work in your mind has to be done on the defense? Because we talked so much last year about the lack of scoring, and obviously that was a huge problem. Defensively, they were horrible last year, and I look at where they're at, and you've got Yossi, and we talked about what's going on with him right now earlier in the show. You've got Brady Shea, and beyond that, Alex, I look at it and I say, I mean, they need at least one, probably 2 right shot defensemen that could come in and play. You've got Barron, who I think they're excited about and played better at the end of the year. But then you've got this whole mix of Delgaizo and Stasny and Willsby and all these guys. And I just look at their defense core right now, and I think you got to make some tough choices this offseason and probably add at least 1, maybe 2 pieces from outside the organization and revamp where they're at right now on that.
I think you're absolutely right. They do. But the problem is, I mean, they've already made a couple moves at the end of last year and then just a few weeks ago that just have you scratching your head. Like, I mean, I don't know why they decided to get Jordan Osterley. I mean, he put him on the roster for next year. That doesn't make a lot of sense. He's 32. He's a replacement level guy. St. Andreas England, they just re-signed. Well, I mean, I don't understand that at all. So, like, you're right. I think they do need to make signings, and I think they kind of already did. I think they're like, yep, we're going to roll again with Andreas England. Of course, like the young guys are interesting, right? I mean, like Willsby, we saw has there's something there.
I agree.
Sure. And Delgaizo, I guess there's something there, but he's not an everyday guy. I think he's like a 7th, at best your 6th or 7th guy. The real problem is, as you talked about, the Roman Yossi situation is got to be worrisome. I mean, yes, the report is that he's going to be okay to play, and it seems like he's on track to be fine. But man, it is just really starting to pile up, and he's got 3 years left. And is that really where you want to be, where your best defenseman is right on a knife's edge of another injury that could cost him a season or his career? So Brady Shea's the one that I'm actually pretty hopeful that Brady Shea's probably going to be better next year. I think he has to. I mean, I think we saw him kind of grow into his role there, but I think that the defense is a big question mark. I have no idea what it's going to look like. I mean, if you go into next season and it's again Shea and Blankenberg and Yossi and Justin Barron, I mean, it's going to be a lot of the same results. It's not going to be a very good defense.
Alex, very impressed with how you have powered through. Excellent and very sobering breakdown. I have to finish with this. Explain to me, because I know this ruined your weekend because you go every year. How the hell do they cancel all of Bonnaroo because there was going to be some rain? I don't understand it.
Joe, if you were on the front lines like I was, it was there was a lot of mud and so basically there was nowhere for the water to go, so it went in everyone's tents, and it was miserable. It was really bad. I will say. Okay. I think that there were parts of it that were okay, and we'll be back. But what's funny is, they still had one day of the festival. Thursday was the festival, and who was the final band to play on Thursday was Insane Clown Posse. So ICP just headlined Bonnaroo. How about that?
Very good stuff.
My God! Oh, ICP baby, Detroit's own. My goodness, pop out the Fago. I hope you enjoyed that.
And they crushed it. Apparently they crushed it. I didn't see them because I was going to get a nice night of sleep that night to power through the weekend. But yeah, it's been a crazy few days. I almost got flooded out, and now I've got some sort of head cold thing that's crushing me right now. But I don't have gout, so I'm feeling better about that.
That is good.
Count your blessings.
Alex, thank you very much for taking time to power through and be with us this morning. Going to be a very fascinating offseason for the entire league that begins now, and we will talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you later, guys.
Alex Doherty from the Tennessee and covers the Predators, does a great job for them. We'll react to what Alex had to say and get into the Titans coming up next. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. This week's Nashville's best deal is Body Rock. Plank, lunge, twist, and push your limits with Body Rock's dynamic muscle sculpting Pilates-inspired classes designed to rock your body to the core. Get half off a $50 gift card now at theGameNashville.com/deals to use at any of Body Rock's 4 Nashville locations while supplies last. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Joe, Jeremy Fowler of ESPN has come out with a piece at ESPN.com where he has talked with some scouts and some NFL executives. And basically, they kind of go through what all has happened to this point in the offseason and highlight some of their favorite offseason moves. And, of course, Rodgers to the Steelers is on this. The Commanders acquiring Laramie Tunsil to play left tackle is on this. The one that I would probably pick and that I'm probably most intrigued about, Devontae Adams to the Rams and free agency on this list. I mean, there's a lot of moves that have happened this offseason that are going to be really interesting. And Cam Ward being drafted by the Titans on that list, as Fowler has talked to these executives and scouts. And here's what Fowler put in his little breakdown here. Says, as the draft process unfolded, Ward's status as QB1 solidified. Tennessee took its time to make a decision with the number 1 pick, but ultimately it was not a decision at all. And this was from an AFC executive. Quote, people had some questions about Ward coming into the process, and I feel like he did a good job answering them. The Titans had far less doubts by the end of the process than they did to start, which, Joe, I think is obviously the case given the way that this is all played out with Cam Ward. My question for you is, as you kind of look around the NFL offseason, whether it's the Tunsil move, the Browns and the trade and the draft is on this list as well, Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers, does Cam Ward to the Titans have a chance to be the most impactful move made in the NFL this offseason, in your mind?
Yes, I think it does. It's and in some years it's probably the first thing people talk about. It's the first thing, I'm sure, the same sort of list or the conversation, like when Trevor Lawrence was drafted, for example, right? I mean, I don't remember all the offseason moves in these various years where there was a quarterback taken at the top of the draft. Most years it is a quarterback taken at the top of the draft, not every year. But again, some years it's like, oh my goodness, everybody wishes they could get that quarterback. And this year was, well, Cam Ward's the best of this bunch, so the Titans got him. But it still could be that. I think you could make the case that C.J. Stroud was that 2 years ago, and then look at the incredible transformation. And not just because of him, but it starts with him. And then last year, the exact same thing with Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. Now, I think a year ago, you're still going in at this point. Everybody's talking about Caleb Williams, right? And so, I mean, it's just, I think it's a natural thing for that to potentially be the biggest move. I also just think the Titans, and I understand that 2 years ago you would have said this, and a year ago you would have said this, but I still think it's different. I still think the Titans are not in a position for it to be that. I'd be surprised if they are good enough in various parts of their team to make this something the whole league talks about in retrospect or as the season is going on. But you have to consider it a possibility. I mean, even if he gets them to like a 7-8 win team that's still relevant in December, that must mean that he's having a massive impact.
Yeah, I think quarterback is always an accelerator with this conversation. And I mean, the Rodgers to the Steelers thing is interesting because the Steelers have still, even without good quarterback play for the most part, since Roethlisberger left, they've been a team that is a good regular season team that most of the time finds their way into the playoffs, but just haven't been able to win playoff games recently. So, like, I look at Rodgers, and I still, like, I probably view them kind of the same way. Like, I think Rodgers has got a chance to have a good year in Pittsburgh, and I think a good year in Pittsburgh for him probably leads to like a 9-8, 10-7 record, Joe, with them making the playoffs and then probably being an underdog in game 1 of the playoffs. Like, that's basically where they've been. Now, maybe they go about it in a different way this year, and they just throw the ball a lot more, and they do have some questions on the defensive side of the ball, and TJ Watt's not getting any younger, and there's contract stuff and all that. So there's a lot to figure out there. But I think quarterback is kind of a natural accelerator for this. And again, like we could go through every move over the last couple of off seasons, but you'd be hard pressed not to tell me that the biggest moves the last couple of off seasons in some form or fashion, you don't go very far down the list before you get to Jaden Daniels being drafted by Washington and accelerating them to the NFC Championship in his first year, and CJ Stroud being drafted by the Texans and what he did for him for that team in their first year. Like those are high on the list. I mean, last year you can look at Saquon if you want to and say that was the most impactful one. They ended up winning the Super Bowl, and obviously he played a huge part in that. So you can go about it different ways. But I guess my point is you don't have to get very far down the list for the impact that some of these rookie quarterbacks have made. And I just think quarterback is a natural accelerator.
Derrick Henry's on that list too. I understand, they
Sure
they didn't get it done in the playoffs, but you can't look at what he did last year and not say he made them better or made a huge difference for them. So, but yeah, absolutely. And the problem maybe for the Titans, for Ward, for Titans fans, is that those are the examples. Cam Ward, I think, is the most likely quarterback to be that impactful, but those are lofty first season comparisons. That's going to be real tough for him to me, especially with what's around him, unless there's just a lot of things that we don't know that are going to be better than they appear to come close to that.
How much of a realistic impact can Cam Ward make with the Titans in year one? We'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025, our phone number. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up at 7:45. All that ahead. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
What are you hoping to see out of Cam out of this final day, and kind of how would you evaluate his performance as a whole in this short week?
Progressed. He's gotten better every time he stepped out. Every situation, a lot of things are new, and every time he did it again or had an opportunity to see the rep again, did a nice job of taking the coaching points and improving on the next time out. And today will be his third time down here in the red zone. That's important. That's another critical area we need to improve in. And that timing everything happens faster. The windows are much more condensed, and it's always good. It's just you can't get enough work down in the red zone. So that's another nice way to cap off the camp for us, is to work down there in the short part of the field and see if he's improved from the last time. So excited about that.
That's Brian Callahan discussing Cam Ward and his improvement throughout the offseason program for the Titans. Taking your thoughts, 615-737-1025. Robby and Rexrode brought to you by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Joe, the question of what sort of an impact can Cam Ward make in year one is an interesting one to me, because I think about it from a couple of different perspectives. Number one, as you just pointed out, this is going to be the way it goes throughout the year, because we've got two very recent examples, and Titans fans are going to look at this. Certainly the prognosticators around the league are going to look at this, and they're going to judge Cam Ward according to this, fair or unfair. Jaden Daniels was awesome last year, and he took the Commanders from being horrible to the NFC title game. Houston was awful before C.J. Stroud got there, and he took them immediately to the top of the division and winning playoff games. So that's the recent example of what we've got with draft picks at that position coming in and making high-level impacts. I think that I'm with you. I think that's incredibly lofty, and I do not think that is the norm when it comes to rookie quarterbacks. However, Joe, I look at last year's Titans team, and with the limitations that we know were on that roster, and I think to myself, all right, think about how bad that team was. We know last year, and the offensive line and all that, like special teams, all of it. And think about how many more games they would have won had they just simply gotten better quarterback play. In some cases, Joe, just simply average quarterback play. How many more games would they have won? I mean, I can think of two right off the bat. You could probably get to 3 or 4 if you really dug into it. I know it's not always as simple as that in the NFL, but that's why this position, Joe, is so important, and that's why they get paid as much as they do, is because they just have such a direct impact a lot of times on whether you're winning or not winning games, unless you just are extremely under-equipped in other parts of your football team. And that's going to be the question about the Titans this year, is how under-equipped are they elsewhere?
Yeah, it's also, and I'm not disagreeing with you, because I mean we both agree that Levis didn't get it done, wasn't good enough, should be either somewhere else or he's a clear QB2. But he did have that same, that offensive line last year in front of him. He did have one receiver, so, and no tight end. Yes, he was not good enough. Also, I don't think it's as simple as that. Sometimes, clearly, they're in position to win the first game, and who knows how different the season might even be if they just don't completely melt down there. And then you compound it with the going bowling against the Jets the next week, but there are other instances, like you said, where you could definitely just you have to point the quarterback first and say, man, there's just some missed plays that could have made the difference. I still, I don't think like let's say you had the exact same Titans team. I mean, I said this yesterday about Jared Goff. He would have been terrible in this offense because there was no protection. But, take one of the other top quarterbacks in the league, whoever you want, and just plug that quarterback into everything, all other conditions exactly the same. Like, what's the ceiling for the Titans last year?
It's not a playoff team, right? I don't think so either. We know that, but again, I do think, Texas just brought up the Bears, the Jags, the Jets. Like, those are 3 games right there that happened last year that I think you can easily look at quarterback play and say, man, if you just got average quarterback play, if you're probably winning at least a couple of those, maybe all three. Like, that's just the margin in this league too. Like, so as bad as the Titans were last year and as bad as the offensive line was, I mean, there were still some results that were just directly affected by the quarterback. And again, like, I'm not trying to sit here and act like Cam Ward's not going to have some bad games this year, because he is. Like, he's the likelihood that Cam Ward is just going to skate through his rookie season without having some pretty bad moments along the way, I don't know is living in the land of realism there. So, look, maybe Cam Ward doesn't give them all that much improved quarterback play this year. We'll see. I kind of think there will be some chances in some games where he will, and I'm just wondering how much of a difference that will make. Now, I also wonder how much better is this year's Titans roster than last year's Titans roster. I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that question is.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't look at it. I don't look at like the edge, subtract Landry and add in what they've added in and think it's better.
I mean, the hope I have is the offensive line, but I still need to see it.
Yeah, I think it'll be better, but it might be marginally better. And if that's the case, it's just not a great condition for a rookie to come into. Texter says his biggest impact will be in the confidence he returns back in Titans fans, gets us excited again, and I'm here for it. I haven't been this excited since the last time we had a young promising QB and went out and got an offensive guru head coach. When was that? Young promising QB. I guess. I mean, well, what? I mean, that was what Wisenhunt was supposed to be, right? With Marcus.
Yeah. Get fired up, baby!
Right? That was
Ken Wisenhunt.
Yeah. You got what? You got Norm Chow and Vince Young.
I guess people were excited about Wisenhunt for about 8 minutes, and then you saw
2 weeks maybe.
Sure.
I mean, look, the guy was an unbelievable week one coach. I mean, if the season ended after the first week, he would have been unbelievable as Titans head coach. The problem is at that time there were still 15 more weeks to get through after week one, and those other 15 weeks didn't go so well.
Wisenhunt's second year, the first game is the rookie number 2 pick having a perfect QB rating. If Cam Ward has a debut like Marcus Mariota, are people not going to be like, yes, there's the Brian Callahan we know, right? I mean that won't be the first reaction, but that'll be part of it, right?
I've already said it. Part of me kind of hopes that Ward sucks in game one. We saw Levis play great in game one. Mariota play great in game one. Part of me kind of hopes that Ward comes out there and throws like 4 picks. Like, all right, let's start here and then we can build up.
Oh, great. And then, so then we can have a complete meltdown then that following Monday. I mean, I guess, how about somewhere in the middle? Like,
maybe the middle's okay. Yeah.
Decent, but not like tremendous.
The last two drafted quarterback debuts for the Titans of significant picks that have been involved. Like, Titans fans have thought they've had like the second coming of Peyton Manning after both of them. So
it's like 8 touchdowns and no picks, I think, right?
Yeah,
8
pretty
touchdowns,
darn
no
good.
picks.
Pretty good.
Just 80% completion, 12 yards per attempt. Yeah. So maybe somewhere down, go down a little bit from that. But yeah, look, I think Titans fans should be excited. Look, I mean, again, go back to what Stephen Holder said yesterday. I think there are people around the league who think that way. We know that Louis Riddick is bullish on Cam Ward. There's reason to be excited. It's just I need to know, is he going to hit the strike zone every time? And the whole live, what did he say? Live and die as a gunslinger, or don't die as a gunslinger. Don't do that, because in this league you actually will die. Like, they'll kill your career if you're just winging it all over the place. Those are the two questions. And the thing is, those are kind of, the two Levis questions too. Not that they're the same player. I do think the one area where, and Holder hit on this yesterday, and it kind of even goes to Dane Brugler. Remember Brugler, a bigger, slower Kyler Murray, which people were like, oh my God. But the point being, I think the escapability and the sense of rush, the feel for rush, and to get away from it and extend plays. It is special.
Yeah.
And that's definitely not a Levis thing. Levis, I think Levis, one of his weaknesses that I think we saw through the and we had plenty of opportunity to see it because of that freaking offensive line. But I think what we saw was he just doesn't have a great feel for it, and kind of steps into sacks sometimes and things like that. And that's one of those things that's hard to, hard to really put your finger on why some quarterbacks are so much better at. But I do think Cam Ward he does have a kind of a wild knack for that based on what we saw last year in Miami in particular.
Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in LD in McMinnville. LD, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, guys. So first off, I know nothing about hockey, so that's kind of the reason why I'm calling. Yesterday, I heard Jared talk about giving time to the general manager and the young players to develop. So why would there not be grace given to the Titans general manager and young players? It seems like it's more, hey, they need to succeed now or the general manager's out versus, hey, let's give Trotz more time because players have to develop. And like I said, I know nothing about hockey, so I'm leaning on you guys. I appreciate it. Good to talk to you. See you guys.
Thank you, LD. Appreciate it. I would say this. I heard Jared yesterday talking. I think 2028 was the year that he threw out there that he's giving Barry Trotz to. Yeah,
cool.
We were talking back and forth. He was like, general managers get forever in this league. I was like, I mean, the average for general managers in the league is, I think, 4.79 years. And the Athletic actually did kind of a study on that this last year, that 4.79 years is what the average is right now. So, I mean, he's already 2 into it. So we'll see what happens at that point. That's the average, though. And that includes, Doug Armstrong's been in St. Louis for 14 and all these different things. So, yeah, it is. Look, it is a little bit.
Does it include the Poyle tenure?
I mean,
how far back does that go? You know what I mean?
I don't think it had Poyle in there, but if it did, I mean, my God, you're talking about 25 years at that point.
Skewing the numbers,
right? So, to me, the main difference between a general manager job in the NHL, Joe, and the general manager job in the NFL is in the NHL, for the most part, your draft picks do take 3 or 4 years to get there, and in the NFL, they're playing for you immediately. So there's a pretty major difference there. So that's why there's probably a little bit more grace given to the NHL part of it. But look, if the Titans have their way now, they've been preaching patience. Like, we'll see how their owner feels about that at the end of the year. But that to me is really the main difference.
It's a great question, LD. My answer would be because Jared likes Barry and has him on his show every week and can't speak on this topic with intellectual honesty, so he's going to be a total bobo about it.
I did hear a lot of yesterday. Well, what about Rand Carthon? Why couldn't you felt this way about Rand Carthon? They did come up several times.
Rand takes naps. Let Rand nap.
615-737-1025, our phone number. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
I think that would revolutionize our show if we went mullet skullet.
Hello, boys and girls. Guess what day it is? It is Whiskey Wednesday here again.
I don't know that I have especially pointy nipples.
Take off your robe.
I broke my back.
What do you mean by that?
My back is broken.
What, a vertebrae or what portion?
Spinal.
Sciatica.
The cap isn't real. The cap isn't real.
The Panthers have gone back-to-back in 24 and 25.
Glorious, beautiful, remarkable.
It's so stupid. It's a terrible song.
Another incredibly well done mashup from Ian Safar. Joe Rexrode, the floor is yours for today's Rex Rant.
Great stuff. God, can we just get rid of the sciatica though? Can we just, just pretend that never happened? No, can't. I mean, is there like a statute of limitations on sciatica being brought up?
Nope.
When we get into the, no? Okay. All right. Just asking. All right. Well, I'm going to, of course, veer my rant into basketball today. I actually have, since I'm constantly, people are ripping me for daring to say that I like the NBA now. Sorry, I like the NBA. I watch it. It's good product. I do need to pick on a couple things that are not good. So first of all, in two leagues, the NBA and the WNBA, because this is coming off. Let's go WNBA first. If anybody saw any of the Fever Sun game last night, Caitlin Clark took a shot from Marina Mabrey. And I think that although it was a flop by Clark, like there was some SGA and the like crumpling to the ground, it still was probably ejectable. If you watch till the end of that game, by the end of the game, they were straight up just like doing wrestling moves and taking each other to the floor, and the refs completely blew it. And they seem to be really, really bad in that league in terms of just setting standards and being consistent. And like Stephanie White
went off after the game,
went off on it after the game, and basically said, I mean, I can't wait to see the fine she gets, but I say good for her. And it might also hurt her. You gotta be careful that it's not just the fine. It's like, you don't want to alienate yourself from that particular group of people. But she's like, everybody in this league is getting better except the officials, to paraphrase what she said. But they really do have to get a handle on it. The stuff that happened in the little scrum with Clark, it was really the hit before that she hit the ground that I thought, was that's what caused the thing, and they just didn't get control of it. It's a product. It's a great product. It's a soaring league. Caitlin Clark is back, and it's just there's a lot of great stuff going on, but like you have to have officiating, and this could go to the whole thing about officiating. Again, you need to invest in officiating. College sports, huge problem with this. You need to invest. It is a gigantic part of the thing, and it's the most vulnerable thing. People always want to think about conspiracies of leagues. That's not it. It's the gamblers. It's the people who get to these refs who can be vulnerable, and they're not making as much money as they should. So that's my constant. I constantly go back to that. As far as the NBA, and we've talked about this, and it is going to change, but like Stephen A. Smith is just like, I don't like every day now. It's like he says something where you're like, dude, what? And just for the most part, whenever I see it, it's like he just has to become the main character. Like it's just not. I just don't think he adds much value to the discourse of the NBA. Yesterday, people got really upset about the Memphis comment he made about players saying to him that they don't think Memphis is safe. Yeah, I'd like to drill on that. Players, like how many players? I know John Morant then went on a big defense of Memphis and things like that. And some people, Ja has been robbed, by the way. So I'm not going to get into a whole, back and forth on what people think about Memphis. If you want to trash Memphis, trash Memphis. But I think it was a little bit irresponsible of Stephen A. to throw it out there like that, as if it's like some huge agreed upon league-wide thing. And I have my questions about that with him. But beyond that, I'm sick of him. I'm really, and I've never had a strong feeling about him one way or the other. I always liked him better than Skip Bayless. Like if you choose me to pick lesser of two evils between Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless, I'll pick Stephen A. Smith. But I just think he's kind of gotten overwhelmingly annoying now.
Have you seen
And
the
now it's like,
videos of him, like his entrance walk into the arena? Like for whatever reason, the cameras follow him, and he's got that little bounce to him. And some of the replies when he comes in is just hilarious on some of the tweets that ESPN throws out there. It's always like, "Well, yeah, the main event is here. Stephen A. Smith thinks he's playing tonight." It's pretty funny.
yeah, it's like you really aren't like, I don't, again, like we have the best show ever coming in next year. And I love every bit of Ernie, Charles, Shaq, and Kenny. I want to hear from them. They are hilarious. They are, and look, I mean, those three guys, Ernie's a great point guard, and then those three guys all played, but more than that, they're just the chemistry and just everything about it's amazing. I just like, it's hard to watch the ESPN stuff. It's hard to watch. And now Stephen A is going to like run for president. Is that what's going to happen?
I don't know what he's doing.
I'm kind of, like, it seems to be like this. And then he's going on soap operas and stuff like that. It's like, maybe go into that stuff and leave the analysis to others, because I just don't ever hear analysis from him that I'm like, that's a good point. That's a good point about the game. It's mostly just getting into these personal beefs with people and being so sensitive when someone like Halliburton says something that's totally fair, and trying to create, create these beefs when it's like, dude, like, why? But people, hey, look, he obviously drives audience. I mean, people get excited, and some of it may be hate watching, hate listening, whatever. He drives he moves the needle, and so we're not done hearing from him. But it's just lately, I just feel like it's like I just want to go through a day without someone saying, "Oh my God, did you see what he said today?"
Yeah, the ESPN NBA coverage in general is pretty bad. Like it's not good. And we'll see. I mean, obviously they've got, in my opinion, probably the best studio show of all time coming in next year. Hopefully they don't screw with it too much and they just let those guys do their thing, but it's pretty bad on ESPN
Do not
right
screw
now.
with it.
Yeah.
No, and Barkley's already like sounding the warning, like, he's worried. So it's like, if they do anything other than say, here's the camera's on, guys, then they're total idiots. Texter says, Joe, if you think that was a dive, you need your eyes checked, Boomer. She got hit. I said it. I think it was ejectable, but I mean, like, she didn't get shot. I mean, like, if you watch that play, she sold it a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think that was a good opportunity for the refs to take control of the situation, and they didn't.
615-737.
So, there you go. Things about basketball I don't like. You're welcome.
Nice. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. We'll have Mia O'Brien join us at 8:30 down in Jacksonville. We'll get her thoughts on the Jaguars and Travis Hunter and how that's all setting up heading into this season later in the program. Get back into the Cup final. Florida gets it done again, and our Predators conversation coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We will be joined by Mia O'Brien from down in Jacksonville a little bit later this hour at 8:30. We'll get her thoughts on Jacksonville and where things stand with them heading into the season as we continue our tour through the AFC South this week. Real quickly, if you're tuning in and you're wondering where Paul Kuharsky is right now, we're on a bit of a summer break with Kuharsky, so looking forward to having him back towards the beginning of football season, but summertime break for Kuharsky at the moment. So a couple people asking on the text line what's going on there, and that's where we're at on that front. So we'll get to PK a little bit later as football season approaches. Coming up, Mia O'Brien joining us later in the program at 8:30. Joe, Florida gets it done last night. They win the Stanley Cup final for the second year in a row, back-to-back cups for Florida. You watched the game, and it became apparent very early on that they just kind of felt like they were on a mission last night. They scored the first goal, and then they made it 2-0, and they've just been so good in the first period in the series and have dominated the Oilers in the first period. And the Oilers, to their credit, a couple of times in this series, Joe, were able to come back and tie the game back up and win against Florida, which is a really, really difficult thing to do. But that's not really a long-term formula for success. If you find yourself down against Florida every game, most of the time you're not coming back. That was the case again last night. And Joe, frankly, like to me, it became pretty apparent about halfway through the second period that Florida was just clamping it down and Edmonton was not coming back in that game last night. And here we are again with the Florida Panthers winning another championship, which means the state of Florida, Joe, has won 4 out of the last 6 championships, and they've had a representative in the final in either Tampa Bay or Florida every year since 2020. Pretty incredible.
Yeah, in retrospect, there's a little bit of a mismatch here, and you look at these teams. What's the difference? The same two teams play well. There's a guy in the third line who was not there last year for Florida who had a little bit of an impact this year for that team. So they just it's flat out the best team, and the D word, of course, gets floated out there, and there's an opportunity for that to be reality here moving forward. I guess they do have some tough choices. Can't probably, Alex Doherty mentioned earlier Ekblad, I think most people think Sam Bennett is absolutely like he's going to be back, right? Is Ekblad a guy they may have to say goodbye to?
Maybe. Like I don't think they're going to be willing to pay a lot of money for him. I'll put it that way. Like I don't think he's going to sign a huge deal there. So to me, if Ekblad wants to come back to Florida, it's probably going to have to be on a significantly cheaper deal than he could get on the open market, would be my guess.
Yeah, and so some guys, that's the choice. It's like, I love the situation here. I know I would be like, South Florida and they're during the wintertime, that doesn't sound terrible. But you can go get overpaid somewhere, and so you kind of got to get it while you can get it in this league too. So, but just impressive, man. Just a hell of a team. And now you look with Connor McDavid, and you said it before, right? Like, is Connor McDavid, if they don't win the cup this year, does he really think about going somewhere else and hold off on the massive extension that they want to sign him to finish his career out?
It's a great question. Like, again, this is the way that I would view it if I was McDavid. And I have no idea. Like, this could end up being a non-story. Like, he may sign an extension on July 1st with Edmonton, and it's just over at that point. That could be the way this goes. I would do – if I'm McDavid, I'm not signing anything. I'm seeing how next season plays out in Edmonton. And then I'm making a decision after that. And is that a good situation for the Oilers to be in? No, it's not. But McDavid, I think needs to have every option at his disposal on the table. And look, maybe he gets through all of next year and free agency comes up and he decides that Edmonton's the place that he wants to be. And that's the situation that makes most sense for him in terms of winning a championship. And you could just re-sign at that point. Like I doubt, I could be wrong. I doubt very seriously that even if he doesn't sign an extension this offseason, that Edmonton's going to get to February next year and they're just going to be like, all right, we got to trade Connor McDavid. Like I doubt that's going to happen. So if I was McDavid, I would not sign an extension this offseason. I would see what the Oilers do, particularly in goal. I would head into next year with an open mind and then make your decision after that. I have no idea if that's the way he's going to do it or not. I also know this. If that's the way he chooses to operate, it's going to be a massive talking point and a distraction all year. But frankly, like if I were him, I would be willing to deal with that because the next 8 years of my career are more important than just the temporary distraction of what that would lead to next year in my mind. I don't know if he views it the same way. I think we have a frozen Joe Rexrode in so far.
It looks like it.
He is frozen up here on the program. Well, we'll take your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Florida wins another Stanley Cup. We'll get back into our Predators conversation. And is there a possible way that they can build and get back to being a competitive team on that front coming up next year as well? Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on Iowa. Pregame beginning at 6:20. First pitch at 6:35. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We'll have Mia O'Brien with us coming up here in about 13 minutes. We'll get into the Jacksonville Jaguars with her as we continue our tour through the AFC South this week. Taking your thoughts on the Cup final last night, 615-737-1025, and the Preds with an important offseason. If you missed our conversation with Alex Doherty earlier in the show, go check it out, Robby and Rexrode, wherever you get your podcast. Brian wondering if the postseason injury reports have come out yet. Heard Matthew Tkachuk was playing through some pretty gnarly injuries. I haven't seen all of it yet. Joe, I'm interested to see what exactly Ekholm was dealing with, because I think he pretty clearly wasn't 100%, and he was dealing with an injury throughout the entire playoffs and then came back basically at the end of the Western Conference final. So he had a rough Cup final at times, particularly the last two games there. Ekholm with some pretty bad decisions, pretty bad mistakes. And, was that the complete difference in the series? No, Florida was the better team, but Ekholm did not go well for him in the last couple of games, which was tough to see.
Yeah, it's too bad. It would have been really cool to see Ekholm and Arvidsson be able to get a cup, even if it would have meant that Corey Perry also would have gotten to celebrate. So again, that's my solace today. I wanted to see the Oilers win it. I thought it would have been great for Edmonton, but I think great for the league to have a Canadian team win it, to have McDavid win it. But it also would have meant Corey Perry happy. And so I'm going to go ahead and take solace in the fact that he's miserable today.
Man, you talk about a run that he's on. I mean, I guess in one way, you're making it to the final all the time, so that's got to be fun. But he has now participated in 5 out of the last 6 Stanley Cup finals and has lost all of them. He's lost all 5 of them. Now, I guess he can always go back to, he has won a Stanley Cup very early in his career, so at least he's got one. But the 5 in a row of losing in the final is brutal.
If you're a contender in this league, you do not want Corey Perry on your team. Do not do it. If you're a terrible team who would be happy to even win a playoff round,
get him,
or even get in the playoffs, jump all over it. But if you're like a team who thinks you're close, he's not the final piece. He's the piece that guarantees you lose in the final round.
It's pretty.
That's the only thing I can conclude. It's math. It's science.
It's pretty unbelievable at this point. Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Daryl to the program. Daryl, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Hey, thanks, guys. I enjoy the show. How you guys doing this morning?
Good, Daryl.
Good.
I'm a Florida Panther fan, so I'm high as a kite this morning. And all I've heard from Canadian media, and the NHL Network was Connor McDavid this, Connor McDavid that, but we cut him down 2 years in a row. We've changed his name from Connor McDavid to Connor McCuppers. But anyway, gotta give my Florida Panthers credit. Bill Zito's built a heck of a program down there, and I used to live down there and go to games, and I'd love to see born in Nashville, so I'd love to see the Predators get competitive like that. Maybe they will. And I guess we just got to have patience with them. But anyway, go Florida Panthers, go Predators, and I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Thanks for calling, Daryl. Appreciate it. In Florida, I mean, what they've done is, it's unbelievable. First off, getting to 3 Cup finals in a row is so unbelievably difficult. Winning back-to-back championships is unbelievably difficult in this league especially. And now they've done it, and they're a team that doesn't look like they're going anywhere. Like, I would be stunned if Sam Bennett doesn't end up back there. They do have some decisions to make. We'll see what happens with Brad Marchand and what happens with Aaron Ekblad, and it's not going to be the exact same team next year, but the core of it is in place, and the core of it is going to be around for a while. Now, Bobrovsky's not getting any younger, so what's that going to look like as they move forward? We'll see, but he still, in the big moments, plays really well. And that last part of Daryl's call there, Joe, of the Predators is kind of what we've been honing in on the last couple of days. And how close are they? And how realistic is it that they can get close to being competitive anytime soon? Like, I think if you wanted right now to do a direct comparison with the standard in the NHL, which is the Florida Panthers. Like if you wanted to do a direct comparison with them and the Predators and where they are, the conclusion that you would draw is they are light years away from each other, and it's hard to argue that. So is there a path that Barry Trotz can take this offseason that gets them anywhere close to being a team that's actually a threat to win? It's hard to think about right now.
Yeah, we've Alex Doherty broke down like some significant things he has to try. Like you said, Robbie, the offer sheets maybe a little bit more, prevalent now. You like where the Caps go, and the Preds do. They have some flexibility to go chase someone, but I do feel like a major trade needs to happen. I don't know what it is, but something that shakes things up significantly. Something, it's not a comparable situation. Obviously, 9 years ago, the hockey world was stunned at the Shea Weber for PK Subban trade. I'm still stunned that there are Preds fans who think that was bad for the Preds. I mean, you can love Shea Weber more, but you have to acknowledge like what Subban did in that window with the Preds, right? Yep. I mean, it would turn out to be a tremendous move. That's a defenseman for defenseman. I don't know what it is. I don't, but I feel like that has to be part of this offseason, or the attempt at least to do something big. And even if it looks like it's just like, like trading comparable value for comparable value, just to change the chemistry, because obviously this just didn't work last year. And I think, Alex is right when he said, like, if you didn't do anything major, but then you had a lot of things break your way, which is a lot of what it is. It's no matter what happens, hope is a huge part of next year for the Preds. That's a huge part of the strategy. Hope. This guy looks more like we thought he was going to look last year. But even if a lot of that works out for you and you don't do something major, you're probably a fringe playoff team at best.
Yeah, exactly. And this naturally at some point leads back to a coaching conversation. And I'm open to that. I'm open to, if the Predators could find a better coach or what they deem to be a better coach, and if it doesn't start well next year and they have to make a move with Andrew Brunette, how much of a bump do they get from that? I mean, we can go through examples in the NHL where you get a pretty immediate bump when you fire your coach. But I still, to me, it's more complicated than just the coach. Is Andrew Brunette the right coach for this team? It's hard to make that argument right now based on the way that things just went. It's up to him to prove that he is after an offseason of kind of tinkering with some things and seeing what adjustments he makes. But to me, even coaching stuff aside, there have to be some changes heading into this year. You can't come back with the same team and just think that you're magically going to figure it out next year. Problem is, I think with the contracts that they have and the years that everybody just had with this group, they're in a really difficult spot to make significant changes. I hear what Alex is saying about making a big move. Where's the path to doing that? Who are you trading that can generate a big move at that point? I don't think it's Marchessault. Forsberg has a no movement clause. That would probably be the guy, but do you want to do that? I mean, that seems like a really tough sell to me. So I just don't know where the ammunition for the big move is coming from, unless you're just talking about being willing to move on from some assets.
Saros for McDavid.
Yeah. Hey, if you can pull that off, I'd make that trade.
How about, okay, let's see. How would you, to get McDavid and Draisaitl together, what else would you have to throw in there? The entire city of Nashville?
Yeah, probably the entire net worth. Yeah, probably.
Will they take Kid Rock? Will you guys take Kid Rock, please?
Maybe so. It could be part of the deal. Does Jelly Roll get traded?
Ooh, I see. Now I don't know about that one. I'll gladly give up Kid Rock. I'll actually give up Kid Rock for a Corey Perry jersey. But yeah, I don't think we can give up Jelly Roll, man.
Hey, Jelly Roll was talking with McKinnon the other day. NHL.com posted about it. I was like, look at Jelly Roll doing some recruiting for the Predators when McKinnon's contract expires in 7 years.
Where was McKinnon?
I think Jelly Roll was just at a concert in Denver. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I mean, seriously, there's just, it's something where like I'm just waiting for it this offseason. I expect one day to be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And like I didn't think of that one.
Right.
But I don't know if that's gonna I do think that Barry Trotz has to be exploring all these things, right?
You would absolutely think so. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll be joined by Mia O'Brien coming up next. Get her thoughts on the Jacksonville Jaguars as we continue our tour through the AFC South. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ian Safar here with you on this Wednesday morning, and we are continuing our tour through the AFC South. Today, it's the Jacksonville Jaguars, and to help us talk more about them, we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Mia O'Brien, who covers the Jacksonville Jaguars for 1010XL 92.5 FM down in Jacksonville. Mia, good morning. How are you?
How we doing, gentlemen? Just cruising along I-95 to RHQ. Hope you guys are doing well on this fine Wednesday morning.
Doing really well. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. So, Mia, I want to start on the Travis Hunter front because obviously draft night, that was the buzz, and that was the story of the league, of the Jags making the big move to trade up and go get Hunter. What have been your impressions of Travis Hunter, the player he could be for this franchise, and kind of the buzz around the city now that he's a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, as Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network noted earlier this week on the Insiders, he thinks that they've talked about the Jaguars 10 times more than they ever have before since they went up to number 2 to select Travis Hunter. Ultimately, for me, I think that what General Manager James Gladstone has echoed, this idea of Travis Hunter will elevate the Jaguars by being nothing more than himself. Well, certainly many people want to evaluate the coach speak index of the GM. Ultimately, I think he's dead on, and I think it's proved fruitful through 2-3 months so far of his stay in Jacksonville. Travis being Travis is enough to elevate not only the profile of this team nationally, but also the play on the field. One thing that I've really noted during OTAs has been just not only the dancing and the videos that you'll see, but after every single play, whether it's offense or defense, it sounds little and minute, but Travis Hunter is running over and high-fiving dudes. Like, Trevor Lawrence in years past would complete a pass, and maybe he, claps and says, good job. Travis Hunter is running over, even if he's not the one on the receiving end of that play, and he's dapping somebody up and saying, hey, nice play. Not making a big deal out of it, a simple, hey, high five. That, though, for me, speaks volumes in terms of this is a guy who is invested in the entire operation, not just who he is as a player, and I think that is such a massive development. Not that the Jaguars have had players who are focused on themselves and no one else. If anything, I think the argument has been we have too many Eagle Scouts here, too many Boy Scouts. But you can just see by Travis being Travis, I think that that's creating a sense of competition and a sense of urgency and certainly a sense of camaraderie on this roster.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Travis Hunter in every way, Mia, but I also, I just, all through the draft process, I'm like, I just really hope he plays defense primarily because I think he can be an all-time great cornerback in the NFL. Not that he can't be a difference maker at receiver, but what are you seeing, or what did you see just in terms of on either side of the ball? Because I certainly saw clips, from practice where he's making plays on both sides. But how do you feel about his skill set and whether either side might be better for him if he does have to make a choice?
Yeah, I think cornerback is the more natural position, and that's why the Jaguars have started him on the offensive side of the ball. The route running is what everyone wants to critique. Ultimately, he's a guy who plays with such feel for the game that he probably has gotten by up to this point just based off of his electric playmaking ability. And ultimately, yes, maybe his route running isn't as refined as the team would like it to be, as it needs to be at the National Football League level. And so that's why he has started out on offense, because that's the area of his game that has to grow. But especially after Gladstone's comments on SiriusXM yesterday, look, they are going to play him on both sides of the ball. Do I think he starts opposite Tyson Campbell at outside corner week 1? I don't. There are some people, some of my colleagues at 1010XL who do. I think that for me, I think it's by year 2, year 3 you see that, because I do believe in what I saw at Colorado, what I saw at Jackson State, what we saw a couple hours up the road when he was in high school as well in Southeast Georgia. I do believe he will at some point in time be starting on both sides. Right now, the Jaguars have started on offense just because that's the area of his game that needs the most growth, because he probably has spent the most time in the lab, so to speak, at defensive back.
Mia, what have your impressions been of Liam Cohen to this point? And as you look at kind of the fit that he is with the offensive side of the ball and what that could mean for Trevor Lawrence, how do you kind of view those two together and what Trevor Lawrence now has to work with Liam Cohen coming in?
Yeah, even just beyond the Trevor relationship, which I think speaks to the larger relationship that Liam has with all his players. The biggest thing that was lacking in the twilight of Doug Peterson's tenure here in Jacksonville was this idea of the why. And I feel like our listeners are sick and tired of me promoting my buddy Mike Silver of The Athletic, but his book, The Why is Everything, that discusses the origin story of Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, which in turn discusses the origin story of Liam Cohen, who, as he likes to say, got his PhD with the Los Angeles Rams, learning under Sean McVay as an assistant coach, and later as his offensive coordinator. I think that the why is everything, and the why was lacking. I've heard it from multiple people in the building, whether it be staffers or players, this idea of going into the head coach's office, and whether or not, and to not put it all on Doug Peterson, by the way, too, because the same could be said for the coordinators, the same could be said for the former general manager. This idea of going in and having a conversation and saying, why are we doing this? You gave me this play in the playbook, but why is this the play that's being run ahead of this play? And not just the lack of an explanation, because I think that there could have been a conversation, but the pushback to why do we have to have this conversation is a bit old school in my book, and it's not what this new age, the Google generation, as I like to call it, player needs. This is and I can speak to it because I'm in the same age bracket. This is a generation that has grown up going down rabbit holes, Googling anything that they have a question about. And so just by giving someone a playbook and saying, hey, well, this is the way we're going to do it, that's not enough. Liam Cohen and this staff are not only available, I've heard it from multiple players, that they could pop in at any time to the head coach's office and ask him anything at all. And again, that's not to say Doug Peterson wasn't accessible, but I think this back and forth organic conversation and wanting to get into a deeper, nuanced understanding of the game of football is not something that a previous generation and an older head coach was doing with Trevor Lawrence, was doing with any player on this roster for the last several years. And this team's been energized. I've heard from a couple players that, like they'll hear from Grant Udinski, the offense coordinator, if he misses their phone call. He's 29 years old. He's calling them back at 11 o'clock at night just because he wants them to know, hey, I care. Hey, I'm here to answer your question. And that speaks volumes to this group who felt like at times maybe their voice wasn't being heard in that final year or two under Doug Peterson.
No, that's really interesting. Collaboration is sort of a dirty word in Nashville, given previous regimes, but I think that is absolutely it's one of the things about today's game that has changed, and people need to be mindful of that. So Mia, also Liam Cohen, the big thing for him last year was the Bucs run game, and he's considered one of the most creative guys in that way. Obviously, it hasn't gone well for the Jags. Do you see significant changes? Do you see a pathway for the Jags to have a much better run game and to give Trevor Lawrence maybe more play action success this year?
There's certainly going to be an emphasis on it. And I think that part of the disconnect, and I think the statute of limitations has run up, so I feel okay saying this. Part of the disconnect, part of the lack of a run game in Jacksonville over the last few years was because of the disconnect between the offense coordinator and certain position coaches on the previous staff. I don't see any of that right now because Liam Cohen has the controller and he's in charge of the entire offensive operation. And I think that that's massive. That's not to say that his assistant coaches, to your point, are collaborating with him, but because the run game is a focal point for him in designing this offense, it's a focal point for everyone. There is not this notion of, well, the offense coordinator wants to throw the ball, but the run game coordinator and the offensive line coach don't. There's none of that. And I think that because philosophically, Liam played the position of quarterback at UMass and learning at the foot of his father, who was a longtime college and high school coach up in Rhode Island, I think he saw firsthand that having a strong run game made his life easier. And so he's intent on doing the same for Trevor Lawrence. Tony Baselli has said it, the executive vice president of the Jaguars, and of course their lone Hall of Famer. As soon as Liam started talking effusively about the run game being his focus and building through the trenches, look, I think Tony at first, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, I think at first he probably was like, oh, okay, good buzzwords. Good job. You know how to, play to your audience. But as he heard Liam talk more and more, it became very clear that this wasn't just lip service. This wasn't just passing the test. This is actually what he believes leads to a better passing attack in the National Football League.
Well, Mia, really good stuff. Really appreciate so much you taking time to be with us this morning. Really interested to see how it goes for Liam Cohen in year one this year, and we will talk to you soon.
Absolutely, boys. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Mia O'Brien, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Jacksonville, going to be really interesting to monitor in this division this year. Travis Hunter, what's going to happen on both sides of the football with him? We'll react a little bit to what Mia had to say. Coming up next, got some rapid-fire thoughts to get to on the text line as well. We'll do all that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Brought to you by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Appreciate Mia O'Brien for being with us in the last segment. Joe, I mean, the more conversation that comes out of Jacksonville, the more I believe that at least to start, they're going to give him a long look on both sides of the ball, and we'll see how it goes from there. But, maybe he's about to do something at the NFL level that we've just never really seen before on any sort of consistent basis.
Yeah, look, I think he's talented enough to do it. I just think that they're eventually going to get to the point where it's like, yeah, like this guy has to be at corner. Like we're just so much better on defense when he is at corner on every snap. I think they're going to come to that conclusion at some point, and then it'll just be interesting to see how many snaps they feel like he has to have on offense. I mean, look, they got Diami Brown from Washington to go with Brian Thomas Jr., who's terrific. I mean, if Hunter is if he can pull it off, I mean, I have no doubt he can make plays on offense. I have no doubt that he can help a team as a receiver. I just I'm not sacrificing. If I'm an NFL head coach, I'm just not sacrificing what I believe is like elite, take away. I mean, I think he's like one of those guys who's just going to be feared by people as a corner, but we'll see. I may be wrong. And then, of course, as I've said before with the whole thing with Hunter is like, if he does at some point get hurt, any guy, in the NBA, everybody complains about load management, and they, for some reason, like they want to blame LeBron for it. It's all the people in those front offices, the analytics people, who are looking at deep playoff runs and how 82 games can affect that negatively. If he gets hurt, I promise you there are going to be people in that front office saying, man, you expose this guy for 90 snaps or whatever a game, and this is going to happen. Like, you're not going to be able to avoid injury. That's where I think it ends. But I'm fascinated to see it.
Joe, we've
Travis Hunter is who we've been hunting up.
Oh, man. I can't wait to hear him talk more as we get closer to the season. Joe,
Travis.
We've had a couple of people ask about this today, so I'll bring it up. The chances that the Predators explore a trade with UC Saros to the Edmonton Oilers after what we've seen from Stuart Skinner.
Yeah, I mean, I just, someone texted like the Oilers or the Canes would be willing to. I have a hard time buying that anybody out there after last season is signing up for 8 years right now. So to me, the return, if you're actually thinking about this, if you're the Preds, and I have no idea if they are, I know if you ask them on the record, they'd probably spit their coffee out, right? Like, what are you talking about? But if they are considering this, then they have to understand that like the return will be horrifically low, I think. I don't even know if you could pull it off.
You imagine the conversation we were having last year? I mean, this time last year, we were all screaming about Saros versus Askarov.
Right.
Could you imagine, like a year later, them having already traded Askarov and then making a move this offseason to trade Saros? It's like, well, who's playing goalie? Who's the goalie for the Predators?
Screw goalies.
Ananen? I don't
know.
Goalies
don't matter.
Yeah. I mean, first off, I would give it a very extremely unbelievably low % chance of happening. So let me start there. And then, the Predators have committed to him. Now, technically, his no trade clause doesn't kick in until July 1st. So, I mean, you could do it right now, I guess. But I don't know that I would hold my breath on that one. And to your point, would Edmonton or anybody else be willing to take on the entirety of that contract based on the numbers that Saros has had over the last couple of years? Maybe they would. I don't know. Maybe they look at it and they say he's not getting paid that much money and the cap's going up. And like specifically with Edmonton, maybe they say, well, we feel like he's a massive upgrade over Stuart Skinner. Maybe you could do it, but I would just put the percentage chance of all those things coming together at about 0.4%, Joe. That's where I'll put it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, look, if you're a team in a window and that's where you need an upgrade, I mean, you could still talk yourself into it. Again, that's what the Preds thought they were, clearly, because they signed him. I mean, at his age to sign that deal, that means, yep, here we're good now. We are good right now. Let's go. But man, this is where I'd love the data, and we've talked about this. There's underlying data, which, like Vingan is the master of. He knows everything that, and you guys all do, cover the NHL.
Ben gets way better at that stuff than I am. Let me throw that out.
He's got it he's at the snap of a finger, right? But goal saved above expected, all that stuff. I'd love to see because there's deeper data, there's better data. I think that teams have that's proprietary. I'd love to know the actual full on analysis of Saros' season last year. From that perspective. I mean, we know again publicly it's like, oh, we got to play better in front of them. The goalie's never the problem. Goalie's great. Goalie's awesome. That's hockey, But how much concern is there actually in that building from Barry Trotz on down about Saros moving forward?
It's a great question. And, I think this is a conversation, Joe, where a few different things can be true. If you're playing on a better team, does that affect your performance? Yes, it does. If they fix the defense around him, will he be better than he was this past year? Yes, he will. I still, independent of all of that, I still think there's plenty of room for concern on him individually, the way it's gone the last couple of years, the stretches of play where he's not been anywhere close to the level that they need him to be, and also wondering with all of that in the background whether or not that's going to improve as he continues to age here. So I think, some people just limit the conversation to, well, if you just fix the defense, he'll be a lot better. And I'm sure he will be better if you fix the defense. I think there's a multi-layered part of this conversation that is very complex when it comes to the UC Saros stuff.
Yeah, look, when we were first guessing this a year ago, and by the way, had a Skarov been amazing this year, it'd be way more intense of a conversation, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to end up being good, but the information we had last year, we argued with Will all the time. Will's like, he's not ready, immature, all this stuff. Yeah, okay, but if he's going to be that dude, then live with some of that and prosper over several years of paying him not that much, whatever. But the first guessing, a lot of it had to do with, again, Saros, his size, and the fact that explosive athleticism has to be at its top level for him to be great. And so then you figure that he probably ages out of being great earlier than some of these goalies. And I hope that's not what we're seeing, but it might be what we're seeing.
We're going to find out. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it with the Predators. As we've laid out today, there's a lot of work to be done if they're going to get back to a place where they're not only challenging for playoff spots, but being an actual threat to do something when they get there, which, again, is what Barry Trotz said when he signed all these guys last year. So how far away are they from doing that? It seems pretty far, but we'll see what happens on that front. That's going to do it for us today here on the program. We'll be back 6 a.m. tomorrow. Hope everybody has a wonderful rest of their day. Chasing Big Joe is coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.